Wow, 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 wow. White Lotus season 3 just ended. I just watched the season finale. The whole season was really, really profound. And today, I'm going to explain to you all of the Theravadan Buddhist themes in this show. Now, many of you don't know, I study Theravadan Buddhism. It's kind of what my whole channel is about and how it can help you liberate yourself from that mental suffering that we all struggle with as humans. Also, season 3 of White Lotus was very much based in so many different Theravadan Buddhist themes, of course, because it takes place in Thailand. So today, I'm going to explain those to you, and I ask that you stick around for this entire video because here's why. I intentionally do not make my videos overstimulating, overly edited, overly done with crazy effects and images and sounds because I know that we live in an overly stimulated environment. Every single day when we scroll on social media is overly stimulating. And my goal here is to provide a platform where I can speak about these themes. We can hang out. It doesn't have to be this intense, overly edited experience. And we can just sit here and enjoy it. And so I ask that you just take a seat, sit back for this entire video, watch the whole thing, and you're going to learn some cool stuff. And you're also going to learn what a lot of the Buddhists teach, which is how to end your own mental suffering, how to end your own suffering in this life right here, right now. And we're going to do that by talking about White Lotus. So it's really fun. And plus, if you enjoyed the show as much as I do, it's just fun to talk about the show itself. So let's dive into it. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the overarching themes and then the different characters that portray these themes. The first thing I want to mention about this entire season, not only is it based in Thailand, which is a Theravadan Buddhist country, but the entire season itself pretty much has multiple themes that are entirely Buddhist. Some of the themes are, first, attachments, greed, hatred. We talk a little bit about gossip and a lot of unwholesome mind states, which are known as kusalas. Okay, let's dive into it character by character. Shall we? I think the first character we should talk about is Tim, because Tim pretty much almost unalives his own son by accident. The entire season, he's trying to grapple with this mistake that he made, this crime that he committed. And he cannot seem to face the music, so to speak. He cannot seem to accept what he has done or what's going to be happening to him or what he has to face when he arrives back home in America. Now, Tim is also from, I think, Tennessee, a very Catholic and Christian background, and Buddhism is so beyond him. He has no idea what Buddhism is really about. What's really interesting about Tim as well is he struggles with attachments. Everybody knows Buddhism, I should say, is that attachments are the root of all suffering. This is what is known as the second noble truth. And the reason that this is so prominent is Tim goes through a lot of suffering in this season. I mean, immense amounts of suffering where he's constantly contemplating how is he going to unalive himself and his family? What is he going to do when he gets home? He starts to medicate himself continuously throughout the entire season because he just can't deal. He just can't accept. And what this is known as is an attachment or clinging. In Buddhist practice, we understand that when we cling to something, we will suffer. So what Tim could do is accept it. He could simply accept what is happening as fact. There's no way to think his way out of this situation. He's going to jail. He's going to have a problem when he gets back home. And there's no escape from it besides, I guess, suicide. But is that even really an escape at that point? He should just be at peace with himself. He should be at peace with the situation. And he should just accept it. Or unalive his whole family, either or. I mean, obviously one choice is pretty much better than the other. Let's move on and quickly let's talk about Gary. Gary and Belinda are back and forth in this cycle of greed. Now, in Buddhist practice, greed can reflect a lot of things. It can reflect how we have attachments towards people, towards ideas, but in this one, it's pretty clear that it's about money. Gary is a greedy person. He unalived his wife Tanya in the last season, as we remember, to get her money. And Belinda, in a way, is not really being as wholesome as she could be in this season. And that's what's interesting. And I think there's actually a really interesting topic when it comes to morality here, because Belinda was promised something and she never got it. And here Gary is going to give that thing to her pretty much from Tanya in a way. But furthermore, is her taking this blood money, is it wholesome? And this is an interesting concept that I'm not going to discuss right now, but it is interesting because when you look at the Buddhist practice of do not steal, well, she's not technically stealing, right? I mean, The whole saying is, do not take what is not given to you. That is the definition of stealing, is taking what is not given to you, according to the Buddha. So basically, Belinda's technically okay in this situation. Morally, though, can she live with it? I'm not sure. I mean, she was promised it before, but I guess we'll see next season. Maybe her karma will come to bite her in the ass, so to speak, or maybe she'll be fine. Now, let's talk about Tim's son, Patrick. Patrick has this lust about him that he is completely intoxicated with. He is very, very into sex and sexual activity, and pretty much his entire character is based around getting some, so to speak. And this is another Buddhist theme, right? We understand as Buddhists that all pleasures in this life are inherently empty, meaning they will never fully satisfy, fully suffice. It doesn't mean that we can't enjoy them. It doesn't mean we can't enjoy food or sex or relationships, but it is this understanding that when you get to this level where you are constantly chasing that pleasure, it's inherently empty. You're never going to find the bottom of that barrel, so to speak. Some people become so attached, remember that word earlier, to these experiences or to these pleasures that they end up ruining their whole lives. And what's really nice about Patrick is he goes through a nice character arc because Wood, Rick's girlfriend, gives him these kind of spiritual books, more that Western spirituality, and he seems to resonate with it a little bit. And in the pursuit of winning her over, he ends up, I guess, letting go of that lust. He looks and he sees that there's more to have in this life than that lust, than sex. And he actually really comes to that conclusion when Wood finally runs up and gives Rick a big hug. And then we have the three girls, Jacqueline, Lori, and Kate. And I'm not going to talk too much about them because there's not too much to be said regarding Buddhist themes, but there was a lot of gossip that happened between them. And in Buddhist practice, gossip is known as wrong speech. It's part of the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path leads us to enlightenment. And part of that is speaking wholesomely, not speaking poorly of others, not speaking too much or too little, and specifically not gossiping, which they do quite a lot. Now, let's get to the best part, Rick. Rick is the character that completely resonates with Buddhist themes. He is a metaphor for the entire Buddhist teaching, that is, attachment will lead to suffering. Remember previously I mentioned this with other characters, but Rick really shines in this way. He really shows that attachment leads to suffering, and I'm going to explain it right here, right now. So Rick's entire life is built around going after the man that killed his father. And it's entirely his reason for coming to Thailand. And during the entire season, this builds really well to a really beautiful crescendo that is quite poetic. First, when Rick arrives to White Lotus, he's a bit distracted, and his girlfriend Wood is trying to pull him back and say, hey, just be with me, be with me. But Rick has this attachment, which I mentioned earlier is the Buddhist teaching that leads to suffering. So from the get-go, Rick is suffering. He can't be with this girl that he's with, that he finds to be beautiful, that he resonates with, that he's soulmates with, that cares so much about him, and they're in Thailand and they're enjoying themselves, but he just can't seem to be present with her. And the first thing that happens in one of the first episodes is he goes to a meditation teacher and she starts to teach him basic Buddhist meditation practices. And at first he resists, but then he finds there is some peace, there is an inkling, something there that is allowing him to find peace within himself. And this is what Buddhism is all about. This is what I talk about on my channel all the time. And it's quite sad at times because we really do push ourselves into these pits of despair and suffering so much more than we need to. And then the worst part about it, and this happens to Rick, is that we actually become attached to our attachments. So he actually becomes attached or has been attached to his attachments even before this season starts. It's been something he's been dwelling on all of his life, and he's done it so much that his brain has actually become attached to the attachment that he needs to go after this guy and tell this man that he ruined his life. And on a biological level, this resonates. Neurons that fire together wire together. So Rick's entire life, he's been obsessing over this moment. And because he's been obsessing over it, he's been training his brain to be okay with it and to continue to do it and to reinforce it until pretty soon, every waking moment of his life, he is now obsessed with this one moment where he can finally go after the man that killed his father. As the season progresses, he kind of has these moments where he lets the snake out of the cage, for example, which is a cry for help, obviously. It's a metaphor. He's that snake. He wants to be let out. He wants to be liberated from this suffering. And the truth is, that's what Buddhist practice teaches, is how to be let out of the cage, so to speak, that we put ourselves in. And in doing so, when he lets that snake go, he ends up hurting his girl, Wood. Funny enough, that's actually foreshadowing to what happens to her and him at the end of the season. Finally, Rick gets to go out after this guy. He gets to meet him in person. He gets to tell him everything that he wanted to tell him. And is it enough? Well, at first, it seems like it, right? He has this moment of clarity. You know, he pushes him on the ground and he says, "You're just an old man that's frail. I don't need to be attached to you." And he moves on. But then something happens. Glenn, the man who supposedly killed his father, says something to him at the resort that triggers him. He talks about his mother. And all of that attachment comes boiling right back up. He becomes entirely based in fight or flight mode. His body starts reacting. He starts shaking compulsively. Because remember, all of those neural networks from before were trained to react in this situation. They were trained to be triggered. And in this moment, all of them start firing off instantly. So what does he do? Well, he has that moment of clarity again. He needs to speak to his meditation teacher. And he tries to, and he doesn't end up being able to speak with her, which is really sad. And that's where we get to that final crescendo of the show. Because Rick, with all of these attachments, as we know, attachments lead to suffering. With all of these attachments, he ends up not only killing his own father, but killing the one person that actually loved him the most. And I think this is a very poetic and metaphorical way to say that attachments do lead to suffering, and there is no point. Even right before he goes to kill, which he later finds out to be his father, Wood comes out and says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Just leave. You have to leave." He keeps pushing her away because his attachments are stronger than his love for her. He is not trained in the mind. His monkey mind is out of control. And as I mentioned in some of my previous videos on TikTok, the monkey mind is the untrained mind of a human. In meditation practice, we talk about it all the time. And as you begin to meditate more and more, this mind calms down. So if Rick had continued his practice every single day, he probably would have left Thailand with his girlfriend. He would have been happier, a bit more at peace, and working towards accepting the fact that his father was gone and there was nothing he could do about it. And that, in fact, telling somebody that they killed his father and that they ruined his life was never really going to make him feel better anyway. Because, in fact, the thing that was going to make him feel better was right in front of him, in the present moment. So if he only realized that, he would have been more at peace. That's today's video. Before you guys leave, I want you guys to do some homework. Ask yourselves, what is it that I'm attached to myself that's making me suffer in my life every day? And I think if you take a moment to reflect upon that and maybe sit down on a meditation cushion here and there, meditate 5 to 10 minutes a day, you'll be able to recognize that more often, and you'll be able to recognize your suffering in the moment, and you'll be able to let go and liberate yourself from those suffering moments and find peace within yourself. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video, shoot me with a comment below. I also just released a really interesting podcast with John Romano, who is a former school shooter, and he is now a Buddhist. And we had a really great conversation about it. You can find that linked on the description below, as well as here above me. And stay tuned. Let me know if you guys have more questions. I'm actually going to start doing this more often with different shows, is kind of reflect Buddhist themes. I've been thinking about it for a while, and I think it's a great way to teach the practice and teach the Dhamma. May you be well, may you be free of suffering, and I'll see you in the next episode.